And hello everyone, thanks for watching. My name's Aaron, and today what we're going to do is something I blatantly said I wasn't going to do in my last video, but we're going to upgrade one of the Warhammer 40k decks here. So they just came out over the weekend, and I got a couple of games in with the Necron Dynasties deck, and it's a lot of fun. It's maybe, I would say 80%, 90% of the way there. So I'm not taking out a lot of cards, but the thing about this video today, and let me know if you guys like this or not, but I haven't decided what the upgrades are. You're gonna watch me in real time upgrading this deck. So I have a stack of cards right here that I'm going to show off that I'm contemplating. And a lot of it's like very like, if you're playing black, you should be playing X kind of cards, staples, if you will, of the format. But I played a couple games with the Necron Dynasties over the weekend, and it's really good. There's just a couple of like kind of clunky cards in there that I'm not particularly, were dead in my hand or just not quite there or just don't even seem to do anything. So I'm going to be very careful when upgrading this deck. I don't want to ruin the Warhammer flavor of it, because 100% of the deck out of the box is Warhammer flavored. So I gave myself just a couple of restrictions for cards to put in here. So like no creatures outside of artifact creatures. So no blood artist or anything like that, and tried to put as many artifacts in there as possible. And just mostly cards to help the deck do what it wants to do out of the box, but just slightly more efficient. So we're going to go through this. I'm going to kind of like give some feedback on any cards I played that were like, kind of my feelings of the over-under after having like 3 or so games with this deck under my belt, just straight out of the box. And like I previously mentioned, like a lot of the precons need a lot of work to fine-tune them, but like this one needs barely any work. So I'm going to show off the cards that I'm thinking of adding to the deck, and a lot of them are really stinky, to be quite honest with you. It's like nothing particularly surprising, but we have Deadly Relic. If you control your commander, just exile target creature without casting it. So Phyrexian Reclamation here is a 1 and a black, pay 2 life, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. So one thing I noticed about this, and just for the note, I'm keeping the commander as Cesaric, the Silent King, because I know a lot of people, there's like probably some other commanders that work a lot better in this deck. One thing I like about Cesaric is that you cast him, and he's probably going to die very soon, but as long as you swing once or twice and just get the ball rolling to get those cards in your graveyard, you can start doing a lot of work once you get things in your graveyard. So like every single game I had with Cesaric, I've only cast him once, and he died. But I did not really feel the need to recast him, because once the graveyard gets full, then the ball's rolling. So yeah, Deadly Relic, Phyrexian Reclamation lets you get stuff out. I do feel like a lot of the card draw in this deck is really specific. So Reckoner Bankbuster is an all-star in Standard right now, and it just gets you a card, it gets you a pilot that can crew vehicles. There's a lot of vehicles in this deck as well, so I feel like this is a must, and it's a card that's in Standard. Liquid Metal Torque, target non-land permanent becomes an artifact in addition to other types until end of turn, so it makes something else an artifact. You can make your creatures artifacts. Not 100% sure on this one. This deck has a really aggressive ramp package. I don't know if I need more ramp. I just like making other things artifacts, specifically the Catans, to be able to do more stuff with them. It's just an idea. So Mind Crank, whenever an opponent loses life, that player puts that many cards from the top of his or her library into their graveyard. So I have this in my Scarab God deck. If you're trying to fill up the graveyard, fill up your own graveyard, or excuse me, this is an opponent. Ooh, yeah, this is an opponent. I didn't read this card before adding it to this pile, because I want to fill up my own graveyard. So I would need a Mesmeric Orb, which I don't have an extra of. So like I said, a lot of this is going to get cut. Not all these cards are not going in there. Bajuka Bog, because I feel like playing black without Bajuka Bog, like you need to hate those graveyards, and it's in your colors, it's free. So this is almost a gimme. Lightning Greaves, just because a lot of those late game moments where I'm like, man, I would love to cast my commander right now. Like I said, I cast him early, he kind of survives a turn or two, turn him sideways, he's not doing anything particularly threatening. But there was a couple like post board wipes where I felt like I needed to rebuild. but it kind of feels bad paying like 6 mana for Cesaric and then just untapping and going, well, that's all I got, and I can't attack or get the thing or get my graveyard starting to get full again. I did also eat a Bojuka Bog in a match, and that really hurt, so I had to fill my graveyard all over again. It was brutal. It was like a Bojuka Bog after Austere Command, which put my entire board in exile, and I had like almost no cards in my hand, so Lightning Greaves won't save me from that predicament. Honestly, nothing will. You know, you're gonna get hated out sometimes, and I deserve to in that game specifically. But Lightning Greaves is just there just to give my commander haste, just so I can start swinging with Cesaric a little earlier. Like I said, this deck was kind of hurting on cards, so we have a Phyrexian Rena. Phyrexian Tower, just to get a little more ramp out of there. There's a lot of token generation, specifically the 2/2 Necron, so being able to turn a Necron into mana, or even just getting artifacts into the graveyard. There was a couple times where there's some artifacts that have value or enter the battlefield that I'm like, man, I had to swing at someone and make a deal with them and just be like, please block this guy so I can cast him again. I'll make a deal with you. And I particularly don't like making deals like that, because someone could just be like, nope, I'll just let it go through and hit and take the 4 damage or whatever I needed to do that specific turn. So Phyrexian Tower, just a way to ramp, a way to get dudes in the graveyard. You're playing mono black. This deck out of the box has 30 swamps in the precon. Cabal Coffers is a free spot in here. Phyrexian Altar, turning Necrons into mana. I'm not 100% on this one in this deck, just because the room's going to be really tight, and I have like a stack of like 25 cards or so here that I'm thinking of putting in here. But Deadly Dispute's definitely going to go in there. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature, which we have in droves, and our Necrons are artifacts and creatures, and then draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. So it's a little bit of ramp, it's a bit of card draw. Feed the Swarm, especially when you're playing mono black. You got to destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. It hits enchantments, which is wild for mono black, but there is a downside. You lose life equal to that permanent's converted mana cost, unlike Invoke Despair, which was survived a ban today, and gets you cards and life and destroys enchantments, but we're not talking about standard today. Demonic Tutor, go get a card, shuffle your deck. So Entomb seems like a no-brainer to add into this. Search your library for a card, put that card into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. So specifically getting something into your graveyard when you need it. And what is a Entomb without, I should have ordered this correctly, what is an Entomb without a Reanimate to go get the biggest, stinkiest thing in your library? If you have both of these cards in your opening hand, the table's going to have a bad time, but I'm going to have a good time. Damnation is on the maybe pile. The board wipes in this deck kind of suck, so I need at least 1 or 2 efficient board wipes. There was a moment I had where someone had a lot of flyers and they were just beating down on me, and while the Necron deck has flyers, those flyers are bigger than mine, and this deck's very, very, very good at rebuilding from the graveyard, so like a lateral board wipe would actually be okay. Rise of the Dark Realms, I just like the art on this card. It's not particularly the best card for this deck. Put all creature cards from graveyards onto the battlefield under my control. It's more of a finisher, but this can be reacted or countered or board wiped in response to. It's kind of a maybe. I'm not attacking other people's graveyards. I mostly want to synergize with my own, but when you're synergizing with your own graveyard, Animate Dead is a no-brainer. We're going to see if we can make room for Animate Dead to just 2 mana, Monster Reborn, a person. So we have Wormcoil Engine, Death Touch, Lifelink. When it dies, or it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you get 2 worms, 3 3s, 1 with Death Touch, 1 with Lifelink. This deck wants a lot of artifact creatures, and there's a lot stinkier artifact creatures than Wormcoil Engine, but this one's my favorite. And then we have Solemn Simulacrum. I'm shocked that this wasn't like shifted, or there wasn't a version of this card in this deck where there's just like a sad Necron sitting by himself or something like that. But it enters the battlefield, it dies, you draw a card, you get to ramp 1 land, there's plenty. And Cauldron Complete, Living Weapon, you create a Phyrexian Germ, and the equipped creature gets 5/5/5 first strike, trample, indestructible, haste, And when it deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature. So this just absolutely can probably pierce through any board. It's indestructible. It is a stinky card. Then we have Liliana, Dreadhorde General. I found that a lot of creatures were dying. And whenever a creature you control dies, just draw a card. You can either create a zombie or force someone to sacrifice creatures. And if I ult with Liliana, Dreadhorde General, I probably win. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control for each permanent type and sacrifices the rest. So I'm sure if I ever ulted with this card that the table would probably concede or keep playing. Who knows? But and then Toxic Deluge. I was talking about getting more efficient board wipes in there, and it does not get more efficient than Toxic Deluge. And Crucible of Worlds, which is almost a must in this deck, because with your commander, nothing feels worse than missing land drops and milling your land drops when you should be making land drops. And the one of the games I went on went very long, and I was literally at like 8 or 9 lands on like turn. Geez, it was a long game. But I literally had like only played like 8 lands, and one of the artifact lands got blown up, so then I went down and I was stuck on 7 lands, and I couldn't really have those big explosive turns to do a lot of stuff. So Crucible World, you're milling yourself a lot, and milling lands when you need them feels bad. So this is just a way to get around that. And Diabolic Intent, which is a demonic tutor, except you sacrifice a dude, search your library for a card, put that into your hand, then shuffle your library. So just adding a little card advantage, couple of tutors. And like I said, not all these cards are getting in. There's a couple of really easy slot-ins and replacements that we can go over. But let's go through the deck. This is going to be the hard part here. So I have everything in piles here. I have just creatures, sorceries, instant. There's like 3 instants in the whole deck. And one of them's darkness, which is just fog, which is absolutely going to be on its way out. And then here's your artifacts, sorceries, enchantments. There's a couple of enchantments. I'm not sure about Out of the Tombs. Every time I cast that, I just feel like I need more synergy with that, but we'll go through it. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of like make piles over here of like, this seems good and this is iffy, and the pile of iffy stuff is what's going to get replaced here. So we have Chronomancer, sacrifice another artifact, draw a card, and as Unearth, that's card advantage. I want card advantage. Let's see, and I apologize, I know I showed it off, but I'm using these crappy Pokemon sleeves because that's just what I had. I hadn't went out and bought sleeves for this deck properly, so didn't want to play my cards raw because I'm not an animal. So if you play Pokemon, you have a lot of ETBs and sleeves lying around, and it's enough to sleeve a commander deck. When Canoptic Tomb Sentinel enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent. So when it enters when it enters the battlefield from a graveyard, exile up to 1. Okay, so that's removal, and it comes out, and it has Unearth, and there's ways to cheat Unearth. So I like this. This is going to stay. Shard of the Void Dragon. I'm not even going to question Shard of the Void Dragon. It's got to stay. I got to keep my Catans. Can't have a Necron deck without your enslaved Catans. Royal Warden. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 tapped Necron warrior artifact creatures, and then it has Unearth. So yeah, that seems good. Like making Necrons going wide. Lynch Guard, sacrifice it, return all legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. Let me move my hand, sorry about that. My camera's set up slightly different since I'm using more board space here. So we're keeping him. When an artifact enters the battlefield, he gains first strike until end of turn, and he's a 4/2. It's going to go in the maybe pile here. That's just kind of a lot of setup for nothing, and I feel like I can put something better. Plasmancer, when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a swamp, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. That seems great. Trazyn the Infinite. As long as the Trazyn the Infinite is on your battlefield, it has all activated abilities. Oh yeah, this card's bonkers, yeah. In keeping. Sawtech Immortal. Sawtech Immortal enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter for each creature that died this turn. And it has Flash, so it's kind of like a... we're going to put this in the maybe pile. Tomb Blade. It deals combat damage to a player. That player loses life equal to the number of creatures they control unless they sacrifice a creature. I feel like I can't take rares out of this. I can get. I'll happily chump some uncommons to this cause. I don't know if I'm taking 20 cards out of it, but that's really specific. But it's a flyer, and it makes people lose life. There's a lot of other synergistic cards in this deck with that. I haven't cast that personally, but I wouldn't be mad to have that as a 6-drop. When Canoptic Scarab enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard for each artifact or land. Exile this way, create a 1/1. Oh my god, yes. Just hate a graveyard. That's probably why they didn't put Bajuka Bog in here, because they're like, oh, they have artifact hate. Sacrifice another creature, add black equal to the amount of the sacrificed creature's mana value. Absolutely, yeah, because I want to keep the engine rolling. I want to be sacrificing things. This dude, he may just be that's one card. He enters the battlefield and makes everyone sacrifice it. But he may just be one of those effects that we've seen a lot of. But the unearth on him is really relevant, and I got to cast this thing and have it enter the battlefield like 3 times with just the precon out of the box. So absolutely staying. Flayed 1, lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. We're going to put this guy in the maybe pile. Milling is good, but my commander does that. And then it kind of just enters the battlefield, and then it's not even a good body. It's a 4/1. Necron Deathmark. When it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target creature, and target player mills 3 cards. Oh, this is a card. That is some removal. And it has flash. So you can just kind of like hold up, and then just get someone, and then there's a lot of, like, I was able to, that's another one, I was able to unearth him after killing him. Technomancer is a 7-drop. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards, then return any number of artifact creatures with total mana of 6 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Yeah, there we're talking now. Basically, Protean hulking from my hand. Crypto Thrall. Other artifact creatures you control have hexproof. That's a slam dunk keep. These cuts might be brutal. This is going to be hard. So Hexmark Destroyer. So I love this card, man. He has like Hexa Menace, and he can't be blocked by 6 or more creatures, and he's able to connect more than I was like, because I was just counting people's boards because I had this guy on the battlefield, and I'm just like, okay, 1 2 3 4 5. You can't block him. That's just, I could just connect 6 damage every single time, and unless someone's playing like an aggressive go wide strategy where they just have, like, there was someone playing Tyranids, so I absolutely could not hit the Tyranid player, but I was definitely able to hit the other dude. So this guy is a keep. He's a keep, but he's like a maybe, but he made me happy when I played. So it can't be blocked. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 3 and sacrifice it. Search your library for 2 basic land cards with the same name as a land you control and put them on the battlefield. So basically, sacrifice them, get some swamps, and you have swamps, so it's card draw. And drawing lands counts. Not missing land drops for 2 turns seems okay. And we have the Cryptek. Choose another target artifact creature you control. When that creature dies this turn, return it to the battlefield tapped under your control. That seems nuts. When that creature dies this turn. So you get to kill something and then return it and then repeat ETBs. Yeah, I have a whole stack of cards here. I don't even know if I'm going to put like 5 or 6 of these cards. I might have to be cutting from this pile. Other artifact creatures you control have +1/+0 and have menace. And that makes blocking very difficult. And it itself has menace and it has unearth. So I can always unearth him for a stinky turn if I'm going to clock someone. This is almost maybe, but we're gonna keep him. Imhotep the Storm Lord. When 1 or more artifact cards leave my graveyard, create 2/2 Necron Black Warrior artifact creature tokens, and at the beginning of combat on my turn, another target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and menace until end of turn. That seems pretty good in a deck that cares about... I just knocked my Pokemon cards over. I'm going to keep that in. So we have Necron Overlord. So I cast this guy in every single game, and he got immediately blown up because people were afraid of what he did. Because you tap X, untap artifacts, and target opponent loses X life. And the amount of artifacts I had on the amount of artifacts I had was very high. And I absolutely was going to start doming someone for like 13, 14 every single turn. And he got handled every time I played him, but I love that threat of activation. So I'm going to keep him, even though I never got to do the thing. This is just an artifact. This is in the wrong pile. Alright, Canoptic Spider. Whenever another non-token artifact, creature, or vehicle enters the battlefield, you draw cards. This is card draw in a deck that wants it. It's 5 mana, which is kind of like 5 mana to draw cards next turn. Feels really bad, and I had a real hard time getting this guy onto the battlefield because I kind of like, it was like one of those, do I continue, I had a lot of hard decisions with this card, and it's probably realistically a maybe. I could probably cut this for something significantly more efficient of a card draw, like a Phyrexian Arena like I have in this pile. But I don't, it's not a bad body. I just had a real hard time casting this card, and once it's stuck on the battlefield, the one game that I did manage to get it stuck, like my next turn after that was really explosive, because once it's like, okay, draw, artifact, and I had Mystic Forge, so I was like manipulating the top deck of my library and then casting, so it can be a important piece, but I did not want to just drop this on turn 5 with nothing else. So it's a tricky card, but I can't ruin that. Catans aren't going anywhere. We're not even going to negotiate, especially this one. Someone was playing the party time deck and had like 80 health, and I literally stole 40 life from them and set them back to starting total, and I was at like 7-8 life, and I went up to 48. That was immediately the turn after is when I got the austere command to Jukabog, but I super deserved it. Triarch Praetorian has flying. When it enters the battlefield from a graveyard, you draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life, and it has Unearth. So this is a card that I had in my hand, and I needed the cards, and I realized that I have to unearth it, so I'm like, this does nothing in my hand, and that kind of really felt bad. So this is on the maybe, because, and its Unearth is 5, and that's a lot of mana to be spending just to Night's Whisper, right? When I can just Night's Whisper. Psychomancer. Whenever Psychomancer, another non-target, I can't read. Whenever a Psychomancer or another non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard or is put into exile from the battlefield, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Yeah, this is like almost like a Blood Artist kind of slot in this, so we're keeping this. Anrakir the Traveler. He has, whenever he attacks, you may cast an artifact spell from your hand or graveyard by paying life equal to its mana cost rather than paying its mana cost. So you get to turn him sideways and Bolas' Citadel, and you could also Bolas' Citadel from your graveyard, which is very good. I never got to use this because this is another reason why Lightning Greaves is on the ad list, mostly because I have a lot of these really awesome cards, but they have like attack triggers, and sitting there for a turn and then just going, okay, I hope you like, people can just be like, can I see your graveyard? And I'm just showing my graveyard, and they see whatever really stinky stuff I have in my graveyard, and they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna kill that dude, you can't do that. So I had that moment a couple times. So in Triarch Stalker, which is the first card I thought about taking out of this deck, because it sat in my hand the whole game, and at no point did I think this card was beneficial. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose an opponent. Creatures attacking the last chosen opponent have menace. So it's kind of like, there was a couple turns I could have been like, I could have king make someone, and it just didn't feel good or right at any moment in the game. And then the way the turn order was, the person to my left was the person that I really needed to kill. And I'm not just going to be like, okay, I'm going to end my turn and choose that person to my left, and then they can retaliate. So this depends on turn order, depends on who's a threat. It is just a little too situational for my tastes. So far we have 5 in the maybe pile, and I have like 30 cards I'm trying to add, and that we're not doing that. So their name is Death. I have to keep this. I have to keep this. This is the best board wipe. This was one of my cards in my last video. That's not going anywhere. Living Death, however, each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they own, and then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. So I don't particularly like this one. I had this in my hand, and I did not want the Tyranids player getting their Tyranids back, which is why when I thought about putting what I forgot the name of the card already. This is what happens when you do things in one take. Rise of the Dark Realms. Which is why I was thinking about Rise of the Dark Realms, because I was like, man, I would prefer a Rise of the Dark Realms in my hand instead of Living Death, because I don't want anyone to get anything back. I want this to be one-sided. So Living Death to the maybe pile. Dread Return. Return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it has flashback. It has flashback. I had a game where this would have been relevant. And it has flashback, and I very easily could have sacrificed 3 creatures. That's on me. We're going to keep that. Even though 4 mana for a reanimate type effect. Like I have 2 reanimation spells that I'm trying to put in here. So, but the flashback seems relevant because you can mill it and still get its value. So I'm not mad if I mill that card and I'm like, man, I really blah, blah, blah. Bacon. I just had lunch. Beacon of Unrest. Put target artifact, creature, or creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and then shuffle it into its owner's library. So put target artifact or creature. It's another 5 mana, maybe do a thing. Well, so this is the dilemma, right? Is I have a Reanimate and Animate Dead, which are the most efficient cards that do this thing. But I'm not mad at having more, and even though this is 5 mana, just the Necron flavoring of the animation effect makes me want to keep it. Their number is Legion, and man, I wanted to play. I had 3 games with this deck, and I never saw this card, and there were a couple turns where I'm like, man, I really would love this. And then you can cast it from the graveyard and create X-Tap 2/2 Necron Warrior artifact creature tokens, and you gain life equal to the number of artifacts you control. So we're keeping this. And Mutilate is a deck I wouldn't run. Is a card I would not run in this deck. Even this card was in my hand, and I needed to get rid of something big, and I was sitting there counting my swamps every turn. And then I drew a card that wasn't a swamp, and I got really upset. And every time I drew a land that wasn't a swamp, and I'm like, and the thing was growing, and I was like, I need to kill it. It was a Tyranid. But I was like, man, I wish I had a Toxic Deluge. So Mutilate is a easy card to put into the maybe pile. So we're going to go through our instants now. Darkness is prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. This is Fog. Fog is bad. I'm sure someone out there is just like, Fog saved me one time when I did this and this, and they Crater Hoof Behemoth, and I hit. And I'm sure someone has won off of a Fog. And I'm typically pro Fog, especially for like creature heavy decks in green. But I might just sell this card. I don't know why it's like $16 for a Fog. That seems bad. Defiled. Target creature gets -1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. I'm going to put this in the maybe pile. Go for the Throat seems pretty good removal. Destroy target non-artifact creature, and it's a good flavor win. Because, I don't want to hurt my non-artifact homies. Alright, so we have the War in Heaven, which is the saga. You draw 3 cards, you lose 3 life, you mill 3 cards, and then you do a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to read it all right now because I'm keeping it. Biotransference is a doozy of a card. This card kept me online. Creatures you control are artifact creatures in addition to their other types. This was featured in my video. And the same is for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. And then when you cast an artifact spell, you lose 1 life and you create a 2/2 Black Necron Warrior. So basically you're turning all your artifact casts into Necrons, and you're losing life, but it helps you go wide real hard, real fast. So I had Out of the Tombs on the battlefield, and it's an interesting card. You put 2 Eon counters on Out of the Tombs, and mill cards equal to the number of Eon counters on it, and if you would draw a card while your library has no cards, instead of return a creature from the battlefield, if you can't lose, you lose the game. I read that incorrectly, but basically you mill 2 cards, you mill 4 cards, you mill 6, you mill 8, and the longer it goes, the harder you mill yourself. And there was a turn where I milled, like, I think it was 10, because I played this relatively early in the game, so, and it stuck. And the thing about this card that really sucked is I got Bojuka Bog. This is the same game where I just got Bojuka Bog. So, like, I had no graveyard, and I got Dangerous Close, and I was milling my answers. I needed targeted removal, and I milled Go for the Throat. I milled something else. I milled something else that I really needed, and I was like, okay, I know this deck doesn't have a lot of instants and sorceries for that specific reason, because you don't want to get milled that hard. But it is such a massive flavor win. I can't. This is going to be the truest of the maybe cards. We're going to put that to the side, and we're going to keep going through. So Mystic Forge was a home run, especially just being able to cast artifacts, being able to manipulate the top deck of your library, and also when you're milling stuff, so you can kind of just be like, okay, there's a swamp there, I think I want to mill that. Wayfarer's Bauble's Ramp doesn't go anywhere. Endless Atlas, draw 2, draw a card, activate only if you control 3 or more lands of the same name, so it's kind of repeatable card draw once a turn. Honestly, pretty good. I didn't play this card, but that would have been nice to just be able to hold up 2 mana every turn, and then I'm like, okay, on end step, I draw a card. And it's kind of why I put Reckoner Bankbuster in there, because to do exactly that. So this is a card that does exactly that, and it doesn't stop doing it like Bankbuster does. Cranial Plating. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control, and attach it for 2 swamp. And then equip 1. What is the purpose of oh, so that you can do this at instant speed because the 2 black is there. It's just a little combat trick. But this card seems like butt cheeks. I did not have this in any of my games. I didn't see it, because that's the beauty of Commander. We're going to put this in the maybe pile. Alright, the maybe pile is getting tall, so we'll be able to get some more stuff in there than we thought. Sculpting Steel. Enter the battlefield as a copy of any artifact on the battlefield. That's an easy yes. I run artifacts. If someone else has a stinky artifact, I would love to cast to copy my own Caged Sun. When equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. Oh, this is Mask of Memory. I'm sitting there looking at it like it's a new card. Mask of Memory. I'm turning sideways with my commander. It has a fairly easy equip cost, and it's just helping me draw cards and putting stuff into the graveyard. That's an easy yes. Resurrection Orb is an easy yes. Arcane Signet is ramp. That's not negotiable. Caged Sun's not going anywhere. Mind Stone is ramp. Hedron Archive. I believe this is a reprint. I don't know why my camera's acting up right now. I don't know why. I'm trying here, folks. Hedron Archive. So it's 4, and it's a Soul Ring that costs 4 mana, and you can sacrifice it for cards if you tap 2. I mean, it's a ramp. It's artifact ramp. I'm not particularly against it. So you have Convergence of Dominion. As long as you control your commander, activated abilities of cards in your graveyard cost 2 less to activate. This card can't reduce the mana in that ability's activation cost to less than 1 mana, and then you can use it to mill cards. This combos with another, with one of the vehicles in this deck, so this is going to stay. Commander Sphere. Good old Commander Sphere. I don't typically run Commander Sphere. in my decks, but the art and the flavor, and I'm not mad at it. Unstable Obelisk is a stinky card. You can 3 mana, tap it for mana, or you can sacrifice it, destroys target permanent. 7 mana to remove a thing is so inefficient, and it's not like this has Unearth or something like that. And I know it's a older card. Thought Vessel, no maximum hand size. That's easy. Scepter of Eternal Glory, I'm not even going to read what it does, because it's keep. Gilded Lotus. Gilded Lotus was a banger when one of my games, so was not mad to have it. Soul Ring. Oh, Night Scythe's a hard one because it does so little. You'd think something like a Night Scythe would have a bigger impact on the game because it just enters the battlefield. It creates a 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature token. It has crew 2. I like the flavor of one Necron being able to crew the Night Scythe because the model literally just has one dude. I am going to pull out my Night Scythe again. Well, this is a Doom Scythe because the weapon is different. But when I had it, it didn't particularly do anything. It made a Necron and it crewed it, and he makes a dude, and the dude can crew it. Realistically, this is a maybe. I'm just mostly having a flavor debate right now. So we'll put this out of the tombs on the maybe. Ghost Arc is bonkers. When it becomes crewed, each artifact creature in your graveyard gains Unearth 3 until end of turn. So this is the card I was talking about that can combo with the other one. So, and I did that combo where I was just like sitting there paying 1 mana to unearth my whole graveyard at once. This is a keep. In Necron Monolith, when it attacks, I mill 3 cards for each creature. Mill this way, create a 2/2 black Necron warrior artifact creature token. Has crew 4, so 2 Necrons can pilot it. It's flying. It's indestructible. This is the one thing that survived the infamous austere command I keep talking about, because it's indestructible, so it couldn't destroy this thing. I was immediately dead after that, but I'm not mad at this card. It doesn't do as much as you would want a 7-drop to, but it seems pretty good. And then we're going to go through lands real quick. Let's see. Tomb Fortress gets to stay. Myriad Landscape gets to stay. I'll keep the cycling lands. There's a lot of them. Reliquary Tower, like I never had it. Vault of Whispers is going away for sure, because it's not indestructible, and having a land get blown up by artifact hate does not sit well with me at all. If you're going to blow my land up, then use specific land destruction on me. Don't blow me out with like a Night's Whisper or Naturalize to take me down a land, which happened to me. And then swamps. Honestly, I'm literally just going to go for like, which swamp art do I like the least? And because I'm going to probably knock a couple swamps out. There's 30 in here. I can afford to go down and afford the Cabal Coffers. So here we go. So let's go through this pile again. I'm just going to go through it quickly again. So this is maybe, this is a maybe, this is a yes, this is a yes, this is a maybe, this is a... I'm going to put this in the yes pile, yes pile, yes pile, yes pile, yes pile, yes pile, yes, yes, maybe, 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 yes, yes, maybe, maybe, yes, no, because I misread that, no, maybe. Thing about Phyrexian Reclamation is that it only returns creatures from my graveyard to my hand. I can't bring back any of the other artifacts, even though this deck has a lot of creatures. This is a solid maybe. And Deadly Rollick, I don't know, the thing about Deadly Rollick, I literally said it early in this video, is I didn't have my commander for a lot of the game. And this is going to stay in the maybe. This is going to stay in the maybe pile. Alright, so here's what we're going to do now. First, we're going to do the easy stuff. And we're going to slot in these lands. So Vault of Whispers for Cabal Coffers, because I mean, there's no payoff for this being an artifact land, right? That's the card I also top decked when I needed to use Mutilate. And that upset me. Phyrexian Tower, we'll drop a land. I'm literally just picking like, oh, I don't like this art, and then I'm just gonna pop Phyrexian Tower in there. And it's wild that there's no Bajuka Bog in here, because Wizards of the Coast is pretty good at putting them in there. Okay, I feel like there was one more land. No, Phyrexian Tower, Cabal Coffers, Bajuka Bog. Lands are easy. No. Okay, there was not any lands in here. Okay, so I'm not going to mess with the land count. Let me check the maybe pile. Okay. Oh, and here's the other lands. So Barren Moor, Reliquary, Polluted Mire, and these are all cycle lands. I don't mind cycling lands away. Tomb Fortress is a banger. Okay, so we're done with lands. We took out 2 swamps and a Vault of Whispers. Put in a Cabal Coffers. Put in a Phyrexian Tower, and put in a Bajuka Bog. Not mad at any of those things. So here's our maybe pile. Here's our yes pile. And we're going to go through the maybes here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cards that I would not miss. So let's see what we're going to do here. We're going to put these 2 to the side, specifically Night Scythe and Out of the Tombs. Out of the Tombs is sweet, but the upside of doming myself real hard. And I also don't want to go down in creature counts, right? That's another thing I don't really want to do. I don't want to mess with the creature ratio in this. So what we're going to do first is we are going to get the creatures in first, because that seems like an easy spot. So Scorpek, the Destroyer, even though, like, it has Death Touch, gains First Strike and Death Touch. Let me see, how many creatures do I have in this maybe pile? Quite a lot, right? No, not really. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, so I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to just look at the ones that particularly upset me. Triarch Stalker seems like an easy one. Only because that physically was sitting in my hand for the majority of the game. So we're going to sub that for Solemn Simulacrum, because if I could just slam down Solemn Simulacrum and not even think about it, I'd be happier with that decision, other than like, oh, who do I choose? Who's sitting next to me? Am I going to upset the person next to me or something like that, you know? Wormcoil Engine. Let's see. Yeah, the Scorpion Destroyer kind of doesn't do much. What else are we trying to get in? So what's really important? Crucible's important. Toxic Deluge is super important. Reanimate more than Entomb, to be honest. Entomb, I can maybe live without the Demonic Tutor. People hate tutors as is. And I feel like that's a thing I have to disclose. Rule 0. One less thing for me to be like, I run tutors. I do need this removal. I do need the Greaves. Burning the Midnight Oil now here. I think I'm going to say no to Phyrexian Altar. Maybe on Phyrexian Reclamation. Let's see what other cuts we have to make. So I'm going to leave the creatures alone for the most part. I think Night Scythe is the one that needs to go. I need to make room for Wormcoil Engine for sure, because Wormcoil Engine is getting in here. I think it's the Praetorian, honestly, because this thing, like every time I've seen it, it's like I don't want to pay 5 to unearth it to draw that many cards, and it doesn't do anything good at 2 mana. It's like a flyer, and I can maybe block with it, then unearth it, but it's nothing worse than drawing card draw and not drawing cards, and needing to set up an entire Rube Goldberg machine to draw 2 cards. Alright, so this is the continued maybe pile. Let's do the easy cuts here. So Living Death is a board wipe that isn't really a board wipe, to be honest. It's a board So swapping that for Deluge is a pretty easy deal to make. Even though Mutilate's position was supposed to be taken by Toxic Deluge. And I think Mutilate's going to get subbed for Damnation. That way I just have cleaner board wipes. Now I have a Damnation in here. Darkness is an easy card to take out because it's almost do nothing. And Defile is bad because it's dependent on my things. I think that's where I'm going to make the room for Deadly Relic. And I'm okay with that. So many cards to add. My desk is a mess. Darkness is an easy card to say no to. Cranial Plating's an easy card to say no to. Unstable Obelisk is an easy no. So I think I'm going to drop Unstable Obelisk for Crucible. Crucible is a must in this deck, because as aggressive as this deck is milling itself, getting those lands back, and not missing land drops, especially when you have 30 swamps, is pretty good. So these two definitely are not sticking around. But for what? So let me take these cards out and put them to the side. These are the cards that have been unfortunately sunsetted. Darkness is easy because Darkness can get dropped for anything. I'm going to drop Cranial Plating for Lightning Greaves. Drop Cranial Plating for Lightning Greaves. And the cuts are getting slim now. Darkness is a really easy cut. Flayed One seems easy. This is like specific, like, and I hate cards like this, mostly because it's like you're waiting for someone else. It's like someone else to board wipe. And I mean, I guess I can board wipe and then flash this in. But it just seems really situational. It's one of those cards that are just like sitting in your hand for the perfect moment. And sometimes I don't like those cards that you're just like, oh, well, let me use it. Because sometimes, like, well, what if the perfect moment happens and I don't have the 3 mana and I don't want to keep 3 mana up waiting to someone else to maybe wipe the board to make a dude that's going to be a 30-30 or something like that, even though as sweet as that sounds. The practicality, and also this feel like a tell, because like it's a really big board wipe, and I'm sitting there like, hey guys, can you count all your creatures? How many creatures are being lost? And someone's gonna be like, what do you have? And I'll be like, I'm not telling. And then I flash this in, and it doesn't have trample or flying or any sort of evasion or anything like that, so it just ends up being a post board wipe big old beater. But I like the Immortals. Scorpek the Destroyer enters the battlefield. It gets first strike, and then it has that, and it could probably connect through. Okay, making decisions. I'm going to keep out of the tombs, even though it shot me in the foot. It's pretty sweet, honestly. It's a problem I like having. Alright, let me look. So I have, so let's go through the maybes again, and I do this a lot during my process, so I apologize. But I'm going to say no to Demonic Tutor, you know, because we don't need to bring that sort of energy. Phyrexian Reclamation seems really good, because I have a lot of creatures in this deck. Animate Dead seems really good, just because we're playing black. College of Complete is clunky and dumb, and it's funny to me, but nope. Entomb and Reanimate seem very, very, very easy. So Entomb's going to kind of be my And honestly, that's a perfect swap right here. So let's do the easy cut first. What's replacing darkness? Which one of you guys is going to replace darkness? I think Phyrexian Reclamation is going to be the best card to add over a darkness, because it'll just, like, if I'm aggressively milling myself and paying 2 life for turning target creature, just getting creatures back from my hand, it's effectively demonic tutoring my graveyard, assuming I have a graveyard, but, you know, we're not going to... Okay. So I established a Night Scythe does nothing. I just think it's neat. We're in the last cuts here. I think Night Scythe is next to go, because it's not a creature, so it's not really hurting our creature count. So we're going to take Night Scythe out, and I think Animate Dead is going to be what we want. And then there were 2. This is hard. What cut do I make? I mean, a lot of the thing I'm struggling with right now is I just like these creatures. I think they're cool, and they're all models I have and I have painted. So cutting parts of my army that are painted that I have in my actual Necron army, just for utility. But I think Flayed One is going to go. I don't even like the Flayed Ones. I painted them and then rejected them from my army. And we're going to put Entomb in here instead. So just shuffle, search your library for a card, put that card in your graveyard, then shuffle. So getting specific things, getting Catans, helping the synergy out. And are we going to cut any of these Reanimate, even though Reanimate is a significantly better card than either of these? And I think the answer is yes, and I think the answer is the Scorpeth the Destroyer. Because reanimating things is very good, and then having Entomb and Reanimate for that massive turn 2 to just get the biggest, stinkiest thing in your deck. And the Immortal survives. And that was kind of brutal. So here we'll kind of go through everything that we're adding. Okay. So it looks like I ended up adding 12 cards to the Necron deck. We're adding Solemn Simulacrum, Wormcoil Engine, Toxic Deluge, Damnation, Deadly Rollick, Crucible of Worlds, Lightning Greaves, Phyrexian Reclamation, Animate, Dead, Reanimate, Entomb, and that's it. So 12 cards. Actually, no, more than 12 cards, because I changed lands as well. I took took like 2 swamps out. So 14 cards in total. Actually, more than that. I can't count. I'm not here to count, baby. And Cabal Coffers, and Phyrexian Tower, and Bojuka Bog. The land choice was, do I want to go down a land? This is the last one, because I have 37 lands. Can this deck afford to go to 36, especially with Crucible of Worlds being there? And I could bring that Destroyer back. Let's flirt with that one more time. So here is the stuff that was taken out. And perhaps I have room for one more. So Scorpeth Destroyer, Flayed One, Night Scythe, Darkness, Caldra, Demonic Tutor, Cranial Plating, Unstable Obelisk, Mutilate, Living Death, Defile, Stalker, some Swamps, Vault of Whispers. Vault of Whispers was the easiest cut. Getting a land blow up by a Naturalize. Are you kidding me? Maybe Phyrexian Arena. Old Phyrexian Arena. Because Rise of the Dark Realms is really expensive, and it's very magical Christmas land, so that's why I decided against it. Diabolic Intent is just a tutor and a sacrifice dude. And feel like if I was going to pick a tutor, which I ended up almost not, I'll say Entomb as a tutor, but Liliana, Dreadhorde General. It makes zombies. It's kind of not a flavor fit, even though it could probably be a slam dunk in this deck. Feed the Swarm. Lets me hit enchantments, but I'm not particularly worried about it. Deadly Dispute seemed like a slam dunk in here, but fortunately couldn't make the room for it. I think I'm going to cut a land for Phyrexian Arena, and I know someone's probably watching this and cringing, sitting there telling me, like, you can't cut lands for stuff. Yes, I can. Watch me. I'm just looking for, I'm like, you know what? I don't like this art. It's too much going on. I'm going to cut this. So we're down to 36 lands in this deck with lots of 7 drops and stuff, but I think it'll be a lot better. So there's that. I'm going to upload this onto Moxfield for the Necron updates, and if you stayed for the whole thing, thanks for watching. We're like at almost an hour now of me deliberating what I'm going to do with Magic the Gathering cards, but who knows, maybe we'll revisit this. Let me know if you like this style of video, watching me make brutal cuts live, which is something I usually do, obviously, by myself. But if you hung around, thanks for watching. I'll put everything in the deck list, so for all the people who just want to see what I added, but like showing my process and where my brain goes when making these decisions, and probably how stupid some of the decisions I had makes in there, like reanimate this banger of a card versus this dumb dude who has 4/2 in Death Touch. But again, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone who's commenting and interacting with me. That's it's been a really great experience to actually like have people interact with the stuff that I'm putting out here, and I'm happy to keep doing it. And thank you. You guys have a good one.